Rock.
This is the awkward moment. Hi.
Luca, I'm seeing a lot of you, man.
Seeing a lot of me? Yeah, I know.
Dude, we're doing a thing next week as well. Like a podcast next week.
Following you around. We're like business partners now.
That's it, man. That's it. On the grind together.
Be in the trenches. Luca, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Miami.
Oh, nice. Great weather now.
Yeah.
And thank you guys for doing this.
Of course.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having us.
All right, guys, live in 15 seconds. Let's go. Pump for this. Good morning and welcome to episode 3 of Trust Talks, where we speak to the most innovative and influential builders in the space. My name is Pav. I am a creator for Trust Wallet, and I'm going to be your host for today on this incredible conversation as we are joined with Luca Netz from Pudgy Penguins and Abstract Chain, Zed from Magic Eden, and Awin, the CEO of Trust Wallet. A pleasure to have you guys. Really, really excited for this conversation. How are you?
Doing good. How are you doing?
Yeah, doing really well, thanks. I was just speaking to Zed offline. I listened to your conversation yesterday. It was really, really incredible conversation, and I didn't realize you guys were speaking yesterday before we were today. So yeah, really, really cool conversation. How are you, Zed?
Yeah, doing well, doing well. Luca and I we have to run it back like twice a week at this point. That's the whole schedule now. So no, I'm doing well. Excited for this.
Let's go. Let's get straight into it. I just wanted to welcome everyone and the Trust Wallet family who are joining us today as we take a deeper dive into what's happening on chain, blockchains, and of course the launch of mainnet for Abstract. Luca, let's head straight to it. I know we're pushed for time today. Obviously, you've built a massive brand with Pudgy Penguins, and now we've had the launch of mainnet for Abstract. What were your thoughts on the launch? How was that experience, and are you overall happy with how that went?
I wouldn't say I was overall happy. I think there's a lot of things that we need to do to improve. I think ultimately we really optimized for the best 0 to 1 experience in crypto, which I think we have. We optimize, I think, ultimately for the people that are coming in and not for the people that are in today. But thankfully, optimizing for the people that are in today is not rocket science. It's been done 100 times before. So I think we got phase 2. I think we kind of jumped ahead of ourselves and put the cart before the horse and kind of optimized for what I think phase 2 of Abstract looked like, which is what does that experience look like for new people coming in? And I think we have that the best experience in crypto today for what it looks like to send somebody and to get them to participate on chain. And now we're very much optimizing for, I think, this current user, which is really keen on kind of sticking to their existing flows. So I think in 2-3 weeks time, we will have the build and the ecosystem that I anticipated us to have maybe 2 days ago, and excited to get that into motion here shortly.
Yeah, because it's an incredible task, right? You've got people or a focus of bringing new people on chain and being that consumer chain, but also then degens who like actually being on chain and who are used to operating on chain and want a certain level of freedom to do what they want to do and have things to interact with. I mean, I was having a look at some of the figures. I think it was 94,000 people interacting with the platform, 1.5 million transactions processed. So, I mean, yeah, an incredible start. And quite naturally, I think you can't expect to have everything on day one, right? This is probably, I'm assuming, a longer term vision that you have and a journey that you have, and even for you to be able to say in 2-3 weeks we're going to be, we're going to be a lot more robust. I think that's really cool. So yeah, man, really, really excited. I think it was received well.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, congratulations on it. I remember Trust Wallet back in the days, it takes 1 year to get to 10,000 users. So in one day, get a 94,000, that was already fantastic and pretty good. But as you said, everything launches. It takes time to iterate it through. So as a builder.
How many are you guys at now?
We are about to cross our 200 million downloads mark. So hopefully we'll announce that soon. Yeah.
Congratulations. That's no easy task.
Yeah, it's difficult, and that is something I wanted to actually explore some stories. So I'm taking on a different view. Usually, Pav will grill me on some questions, but today I get to also pick your guys' brain. So for the benefit of the audience, some people might not know, or they may know, is that Luca, you have done some amazing twisted and shifts with the ecosystem that you're building. Started from Project Penguin when you first. You actually took over it when it was in a really rough place and did something amazing with the community to turn it around. And then afterwards, there are many other shifts too. So would love some story time, especially what made you believe that the brand was worth something? And what was your conviction? And then how does that lead to the future shifts, including the abstract chains? Just wanted to get to know your thought process and the story behind the scene.
Yeah, I think my thought process was I was a big collector of pudgy penguins early on. When I bought the collection as a collector, I closed my eyes and I envisioned where this could go. So being from the consumer brand space, if I close my eyes and just think about the word pudgy penguins, I envision the character. To me, it's a multi-billion-dollar brand. And that's ultimately what convinced me to actually buy the project. It ultimately also, like looking at the NFT landscape, I felt like there was a lot of room to compete and a lot of room to innovate. And a lot of the things that I wanted to see, from some of the incumbents ultimately was not being done the way that I thought it should be done. And I wanted to be able to kind of, set the tone in terms of what I felt like these things should look like and what I think these teams should be doing. Ultimately, what has transpired over the last couple of years is I think we've built one of the most popular characters in crypto today. I think we have the best community in crypto today. And we are scaling out our product suite to build a bunch of products that are relevant to scale in terms of penetrating the real world. And so when looking at that scaling opportunity, obviously you have to build something on that's not Ethereum mainnet. That led us to exploring what it looks like to work with L2s. When exploring the L2 landscape, I realized that what we were optimizing for and what we felt like L2s should be focusing on was not necessarily the priority or the focus of these ecosystems. And so rather than, going with somebody else, we decided we kind of saw the same opportunity that we saw with Pudgy Penguins, which was, it seems like there's a huge opportunity to do something that I think, can be really predicated around setting the tone and setting the bar for these things. And we should just do it ourselves and capture that value. So that was the thought process. About 6-7 months ago, we acquired a company called Frame. They'd been building their project for 6 to 12 months prior. And here we are today.
Amazing. Now moving on to Zed. Magic Eden has done some really amazing expansion as well. You can call it shifts. So, and what's amazing for me about Magic Eden is keep focusing on growing values too. So curious about your decision process. How do you decide on the trends and the ecosystem in your expansion plan that is worthy to bet on?
Yeah, it's pretty it's like a hard question to answer. I could probably talk a long time about it, but I'll try and be brief. I think there's kind of two things, and I think most people will recognize a couple of really big decisions that Magic Eden made, and kind of remember us for that, right? So I think one of them was that we started the company on Solana when it was not very, very obvious to do so. This was in 2021. And back then, it clearly, the NFT market was on Ethereum, and Solana had a very, very different reputation than it had today, right? But I think to develop the kind of conviction to make decisions like that, you have to be close to the detail and close to the community. And it was funny. Like Luca said one thing yesterday, where I think I heard this on a podcast maybe that Luca did. It's like he spends a bunch of time at night just like on his phone trading a bunch of stuff, right? And you got to do that kind of thing. You have to do that, because if you don't do that, then it's hard for you to form good opinions and then make good decisions. And for us, like that's manifested obviously in our decision to go to Solana in the very early days, and then we were probably the first major implementation or major dApp that decided to do a bunch of multi-chain stuff again back in early 2022. And that again was not that obvious, right? Because like most dApps get started, they're like one use case on one chain, and Magic Eden was pretty much multi-use case on multi-chain, which was very ambitious, and of course there's a lot of challenges with doing that. But I think we've proven that that is the world we are going to live in, and I think that'll increasingly be true over time. Like I find it hard to believe that it'll be a winner-take-all kind of chain market. I just don't think that's at all going to be the case. Like we see so much innovation on both in terms of new chains, but also builders going onto those chains, that it's inevitable that many use cases will pop up in different ecosystems. And for us, our whole thing is, we have this mantra of all chains, all assets. So we want to stick to that, right? Crypto enables little micro markets and micro economies to pop up in a lot of different places for anything. And there should be a really easy, simple way and a delightful way to access all of that and trade all of that. And we want that to be Magic Eden. So that's kind of what guides us ultimately.
Yeah, I echo with that. As you're doing ecosystem expansion, actually the whole infrastructure and architecture needs to change. And the way to approach the problem needs to change too. And sometimes you can probably not do it all, and you have to choose certain long tail, right? Like here's the core area and here's the long tail to focus. We can talk about that a little bit more. Maybe a good segue into the next topic as path that you might be interested in on what define a successful ecosystem in the chains.
Yeah, definitely. I again also echo that. As a user of Magic Eden, I'm like super bullish. I think the UI UX is incredible. It's got like the perfect balance, and like being almost in the trenches. I know you didn't say it, but being in the trenches and really getting an understanding of what are people talking about, what chain is like sort of dominating in terms of mind share, where's liquidity moving. And we know that people are going to be chain agnostic, right? That is the future. It's unequivocally people are going to be across multi-chain. They're not just going to be focusing on one. Luca, I wanted to just get your thoughts on a little bit about NFT specifically on chain. So obviously you built on ETH mainnet. Now we've had the launch of Abstract mainnet. What do you think makes a chain truly work for NFTs?
I think it's funny. Somebody made a post about this saying like ETH was positioned for NFTs. I think there was this idea. I think Pac-Man is the first one to see that they should be like hyper liquid assets, and that that is. I think NFTs are different than any other asset in the crypto ecosystem in the sense that they have mechanics and variables and vectors to them that aren't necessarily predicated on the most efficient trading mechanism. So I think everyone in crypto talks about like speed and liquidity and trading and things like that. And don't underestimate, ETH's, $500 gas fees in the peak of the NFT market and that ability, they're scarce assets, right? They're collectibles. There's somebody asked me this question years ago and I didn't really know the answer. I know the answer today, but they're like, if Pokemon cards were instantly sellable and super liquid the way that NFTs are, would Charizard be worth $1 million? Would a first edition Charizard be worth $1 million? And the answer is probably no, right? So there's a property to them that I think make illiquidity is almost a feature, not a bug, when it comes to when it comes to these things, believe it or not. So, ETH, there was a post the other day, which was like, Solana owns meme coins, and, this chain owned this, and ETH owned NFTs. And I think part of the properties of mainnet ETH made NFTs super interesting from that perspective. It's a weird thought. But I think ultimately it comes down to the ecosystem, the community, the culture, and ultimately their tribalistic assets. So whatever people want from a identity and tribalistic perspective, it ultimately comes down to the ecosystem and people wanting to participate in those type of actions.
Yeah, fair enough. And in terms of like the success of a blockchain, obviously we haven't really seen like in the space before of like chain native streaming. I know that's obviously something that's super big on Abstract. I know you're going to be doing your streams and you're back in the trenches next week as well. How big do you think that is? How big do you think that is going to be to this like quote unquote success of a blockchain? Are we going to be speaking in 6 to 12 months and saying that streaming cracked the code on bringing loads of people on chain?
I think it's part of the code. And if you actually go through the Abstract streaming and you tip, and people are getting tips in real time, straight deposits, no waits, it's actually a really fascinating behavioral pattern.
Yeah.
And it's something that seems glaringly obvious. I mean, there's people on Abstract streaming already that have made thousands of dollars in the first couple of days from tips, right? Those are direct deposited. There's no friction there. Like, that's money that's basically in their account. And that's probably one of the things that I actually most underestimated about the platform, but it's probably the place today that is bringing the most delight. And ultimately, I think, I've always been of this guidance that content creators and creators bring the momentum, and they bring the traffic, and they bring the value. And very few ecosystems, if any, that I can recall really created some sort of automated flywheel for that end user, specifically the content creator, to go and to participate in an ecosystem. And to create some sort of incentive flywheel for them. So I do think, we have a lot to do over on the Abstract side. I think if you kind of close your eyes and you see what exists there, there's a vision, and a really exciting one, if and when we pull it off. Because there's a lot of ingredients there that I think could, create an explosive type of momentum.
Yeah, I've got some of the figures here. I think it was $3 million in streamer donations in 72 hours, which is astronomical, right? I don't think anyone would have anticipated that level. And we've seen tipping work in Web2 and in various other gaming and other platforms. We've seen where tipping works really well. So yeah, I think like the fact that was underestimated. I think even a lot of people didn't necessarily understand the gravity of how easy and how frictionless that process would be, where you could just tip someone and automatically you've got those transactions on chain that would have never have happened outside of streaming.
Yeah, totally agree.
Awen, I know you had another question regarding the competition.
Yes, I might want to piggyback on that whole idea, right? Since it sounds like the chain is really focusing on the creators, the content, and then it comes from the upper applications and IPs. So I would imagine that there is something that you wanted to hold on to create that competitive edge for Abstract as a chain, and then you kind of decide it as the consumer chain. Can you elaborate that particular one a little bit more? Like, what is the consumer chain vision that you feel so excited about that you didn't finish your sentence in your last question? And then how, given your experiences from the front end, the upper application and IP level that goes down, that can enable this chain to be so unique?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, what does it mean to be the consumer chain? I think today it has to be, I actually think to be a consumer chain, I think anyone achieving or trying to be the consumer chain, in my mind, I think is going to be predicated around the consumer experience. So I use this analogy a lot, but blockchains today feel like 4chan. So 4chan is like a decentralized social network, right? Like, if you know how to put the pieces together, it's amazing. If you don't, it can be pretty harmful. How do you make blockchains today feel like Instagram? And I think that is predicated on the interface, right? So how does it, first and foremost, like, to be the consumer chain, you have to be consumer centric. You have to put consumers above all else. And you have to have a way and an experience for people to come in and participate really quickly. I think we already accomplished that today. I think that's very easy for anybody listening to go and check that out. Go to abs.xyz and see exactly what that experience is from 0 to 1 to actually getting onboarded. It's the best experience that I've felt on a chain level, right? One singular domain, one singular interface, one singular destination in which you can do everything on chain without having to go anywhere else, right? And you can basically do that here. You can entertain, you can watch content. As you're watching that content, you can go and participate within the content and the ecosystem that these content creators are creating content around, right? You are onboarded immediately into a smart wallet via an email and a password. You can trade right there. You can explore, you can discover, you can make friends, you can socialize. So it all kind of just starts and stops in one destination. Now, I think our issue is a lot of people don't want to be stuck in one destination that are currently here, right? So new people, right? Let's say there's a big Web2 streamer that ultimately, asks people to come on board, and to watch their stream, those people's onboarding experience is going to be bar none. Right. However, if I have, 200 ETH in a MetaMask, like I don't want to go and use your wallet. I don't want to go and use your flow and use your portal. And I think ultimately that was our mistake. So, thankfully that part is easy, right? You're basically, doing what every other chain does. And from that point, and there's 100 roadmaps that you can follow to kind of get there. And that's ultimately kind of how we're thinking of things.
Amazing. And Zed, I wanted to just bring you in here as well, just to get your take on this as well. From Magic Eden's perspective, what makes a blockchain ideally like specific for NFT trading and like generally retaining users? What's that sort of thing that you've seen consistently across chains that's successfully working?
I think so. The first thing I'll probably share two things. The first thing I think is similar to Luca's point about content creation. You have to have a very, very passionate group of people who are willing to experiment, right? And they're willing to kind of like take a bit of a bet that that's the community and that's the tech that they want to use. The best example I can think of this that was probably the most contrarian at the time was like when ordinals came around in 2023.
Yeah.
And just if you look at it objectively with a like analytical mindset, your reaction, which is a very reasonable reaction, would be, why would anyone want to do this? This makes like very little sense. It's so slow. It's so expensive. We've moved on from Bitcoin. Why do people want to do things on Bitcoin? But it turns out that people really valued this property of having their content be directly inscribed on chain. Like that actually turned out to be something valuable for people, right? And they wanted that. And then therefore, there was just this cultivation of people that then came and then created a bunch of things, right? Now you can see it's like Quantum Cats with Udi or like OMBs with ZK, right? There's like all these people that are very, very passionate about growing and utilizing Bitcoin in that way. So to me, like this content creation thing, it stems from what is the underlying value prop that the creators can come and get from using one of these chains. So that's the first one. The second one is it's more like nothing is like an instant win. I think that for a chain to build up an ecosystem, it typically happens over months, if not years, right? It's very, very rare. Actually, it's never happened where a chain has suddenly just reached like insanity in terms of growth and product market fit or whatever you want to call it. Just look at Solana, right? It was like, it came out, people were excited, died for a while, and then they had to like get reborn from the ashes. And I was working in the Ethereum ecosystem from 2017 to like 2021, 2020, same thing, right? After ICOs, it was like, man, it felt like things were really, really dead. And they had to get reborn from the ashes and then go again. And there's something about that galvanizes a community, and you kind of need that. I feel like you really, really, really need that. You have to like go through some hardship together, and then you get out of that. Everyone is like, oh my God, let's go, right? And I think to me, you can't always predict that because that's like an answerless question. But in hindsight, you look at every successful ecosystem and they've gone through that. And I think that you have to look for the green shoots of that. And that typically is like, are these people really passionate? Are they willing to like defend? Are they willing to get behind when things are hard? Are they willing to just grind things out? That's kind of what at least we look for. And it's very, very difficult. So there's no like silver bullet here, but I think those are some of the signals that I think we look at and I think are really important for just long term.
Yeah, some really interesting points there that I hadn't necessarily thought about. And I actually remember the ordinals run, and I remember in my head fudding it at first, saying this is clunky and there's transactions, and like there was so much banter about like you mint now and you'll get it in like 3 days. And you're 100% right. Like you had this core community that was so bullish that wanted to inscribe on chain, and they didn't care. And it's like they were just so convinced that that's what they wanted to do. And then you saw that massive pump, and everyone, you know, sort of feel like they'd missed out on that. And then, yeah, I think not just with chains, but even with projects. And I know Luca touched on this yesterday as well, that community has to go through that hardship to then stick around and be there for that time when it gets to the all-time high. And he was saying that that's happened 3 or 4 times with the NFT collection across Pudgy Penguins. And there's only a matter of time before that happens with chains. And people have to go through that to then realize, okay, cool, look, like we actually really do believe in this. And it shakes out people who don't. And then you've got a group of people who 100% believe in the project or the chain, and those are the ones that those are users that you want to drive forward. So yeah, like really, really cool. I like how you're thinking about that.
I wanted to take that line of thought and go on to the next one, because many of our users and audience base are actually curious about this. And Pat, if you remember, we had a question about, you know, NFT or memes, right? Like for the cycles too.
Yeah.
It kind of feels that the NFT is also going through this kind of rebirth cycle potentially. There was the real boom 2021, and then there was the crash, and then things kind of take over with a similar kind of cultural symbol element, but not exactly the same, since it's a complete different format and presentation. And now we're considering that in the rebuilding stage. Even with ordinals, it's probably one kind of incarnation. So you two are the experts in the trenches. Like, what's your conviction? What opportunities do you see in the NFT sectors? Is it in this cycle? Is this for however long? Like, in your view, what will be the different incarnation of the NFTs adoption in the future?
I think NFTs are the best form of digital tribalism that exists in the world today. And I think the path for any crypto founder, if I was building a protocol, if I was building a chain, if I was building a SaaS, anything that's just not B2B, anything that's in crypto that services, you know, a lot of people, I would actually start with an NFT project. Because if you can't pull that off, right, then I don't think you're going to be able to stand the test of time. And I actually think it's the best way to cultivate a community and a culture early on. And so, you know, I'm an example of this. Barachain is an example of this. People don't know this, but Barachain was an NFT collection before the chain, right? There's actually many, many case studies that prove that if you go and you do the dirty work and you build that community for maybe a month, 6 months, a year and a half. And so I actually believe that NFT projects, the next meta will be around like the origin, like real builders trying to build real products and trying to build a real community day one. And I think it's the best path towards that. And then obviously I think as people make more money in the cycle, you know, NFTs fundamentally are Veblen goods. They're status symbols, right? They're great ways to identify community members, you know, via your sphere of influence and your tribe, because it's easily identifiable via the profile picture that they wear. So I think it's just like, you know, there could be a lot of different facets. On one facet, it could be, you know, builders realizing that like, hey, you know, my value of my business could be exponentially more if I decide to do 6 to 12 months of this dirty work by building a real community and having these PFPs be the origin of that. Maybe it's the cycle gets so nutty and people are just wearing, you know, flexing on the timeline in the digital sphere with these expensive profile pictures. That will always work, I think, depending on how nutty things get. The other side of it is, you know, how deep and how robust can you ultimately, make these new characters into IP characters, and maybe they're the origins to mimetic coins moving forward. There's a lot of different ways that you could play it. I personally would hope to see that more builders from, you know, following the Pudgy Penguins route, following the Barachain route, because I think you're just able to see success in a way that I think, sets you up for the future. Because I think if you don't know how to build community, you're going to have a hard problem building in crypto. And I think it also kind of creates a lot more excitement and hype, which I think is important in crypto for a lot of these new protocols and chains launching. So I'd like to see more of that. I'd like to NFTs to be like, hey, if you want to just go gamble in the casino, you go to the meme coins and you go to the pump fund. But if you want to be a part of something real and tangible and be a part of, a tribe, you come to these NFTs.
Interesting.
Yeah. I'll share one thing about this, which is it's similar to Luca's take, but I have like a little more one nuanced point that I want to make, which is if you look at meme coins, I think every cycle there's a reincarnation of ICOs, right? It's like, what's the mechanism to like basically, like make money? Yeah, degen. And I think that is obviously the incarnation of this cycle, like for sure, right? I think that's very, very clear to everyone. But if you ask everyone who is deep in meme coins, which by the way, they're all the same people were deep in NFTs, tell me the main difference, right? And I think universally people would say that, oh man, that NFT cycle was way more fun. And I think that actually hits at the core of something that Luca is saying about this community thing. It's like, hey, we're in this thing together. And you don't quite get that when it's so egregiously PvP in meme coins. Yeah. Which there's a time and place for that. I'm not saying it's not anything against meme coins. I think meme coins are great. It's obviously captured a lot of attention. And I think as a business that is in the business of let people trade anything, I think that's very, very it's great. It's very valid. But there's something different about the feeling that NFTs can create and why someone would want to use that as a token mechanism versus say meme coins. And our perspective here is that there's clearly this theory about like capital rotation back when a bunch of people have made some bags and ETH and Sol and Bitcoin, everything goes up, that everything rotates because these are Veblen goods. But I think the real thing is eventually people will tire of meme coins. I just think that eventually will happen, and which is totally normal for crypto, right? Because these waves come and go, and at that point, if you are building something serious, whatever chain you're on or whatever you're trying to do, you're building something serious and you're trying to cultivate a community. I agree, NFTs is still the best way to do that. And there is this theme of bringing more IP on chain, right? There's a lot of different teams trying to tackle this problem. I'm actually pretty excited about it. But whether it's like Story or Anime Chain or all these guys, right? Probably Abstract as well. And as that comes online, that's another sort of angle to see how NFTs can like some fundamental experimentation on this layer of NFTs. So that's some of the stuff that we look forward to.
Yeah, that's something super interesting. Just to quickly summarize my takeaway on both of your sharing, I think Lucas was touched about that. NFT can be the best amplification or testing battlefield when it comes down to community building and culture building. And Zed, that you are touching upon an interesting aspect, which is still around content and the IP and the fundamental values, if people are building around it. So I used to give a little bit of a talk and thesis around NFT in April last year. I was during the historical time period, that Renaissance. I said that like what actually triggered the Renaissance was because of Medici family, which is a banking family, had a lot of money with the capital, but with a vision, with a mission that see knowledge thriving, bring back the Greek culture and the knowledge and the arts. That triggers the Renaissance. So if crypto, traditional tokenized crypto, which is more financial based in capital markets, be the Medici, and then there is a renaissance coming potentially from NFTs, that will be naturally that go hand in hand and trying to drive the civilization's growth. However, we're right now still in a very mercenary capital markets type of game. What would you guys see are potentially missing to kickstart a potential renaissance or visionary or culture building this cycle or with this rounds of the bull market?
The problem is with that is you just have to address the elephant in the room is people are getting rewarded in the short term for not doing that. So I really think you see culture building and all of these things transpire in bear markets. I think that's where winners are made. I think in a bull market, anyone who's coming in trying to build something new in a bull market, it's too easy to grift and you get rewarded for doing it. And so I don't think this is where you see the top builders come in. You might see them get their beak wet and they might be ideating and they might come into the bear market and they really will build awesome things. So it's not assuming that any person who comes in now is, not there for the right reasons. But there's very much, I can tell you somebody who's only built in the bear, and then the bull really threw me off guard in terms of it is a very different environment and it's a very different build and cadence, at least for my business. So I can only speak on my business. Maybe Z's business is like, their business is very straightforward. But, ABC, it's more predicated on like real world, like it's more of a real business than my business, at least in the crypto business. My business is more predicated on speculative value within crypto, right? Z's business is, they got crypto revenue, right? So that might be a little more consistent. So I'd love to hear his perspective. But in my mind, I think you really see a lot of this culture and community building come in the bear market. And the bull market, it's ruthless, right? People are with you if you're making money, and they're not with you if they're losing money, right? And it starts and stops there. The opportunity cost is too great. So you have to understand that. You have to have a little bit of empathy for that, because it's basic human nature. That's not at any fault to them. So that's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah. I think I would agree with that. The one thing I'll add is, how do I put it? It's like, this is one of the most, I think one of the hardest things about building something in crypto. And Luca probably feels this too. It's like, I have this desire to also will, NFTs and this technology into more mainstream existence. I mean, that's like one of the, obviously the core reasons we started this company, right? So I deeply, deeply want that. And I want that now. I want that yesterday. And I want like millions of people to want this. But in crypto, I feel like you also have to be practical about what you build and when, right? In the sense of, you cannot be building the thing like the 10-year vision today, because nobody wants that, right? It's like it's like, you go back to 2018 or something, you had very, very idealistic people building some really esoteric things on chain, and it's just like nobody's going to use that thing. So I think that you have to be willing to play both games. And what I mean by the games is like, there is a game of what do the degens want today, and you have to be willing to build that stuff, because otherwise you're just building some random thing in an ivory tower that no one cares about. But you also have to have an eye on what does the future look like, which is at the end of the day, like when this is being used by a lot of people, like what should your product ultimately do? And that's why I think that, to go back to your question about what's the thing that will NFTs back, I actually don't really spend that much time thinking about that particular question, because if I thought about that question, then I would be making a very deep categorical bet on a subcategory of NFTs. Like I would be saying something like, oh, I really, really want music NFTs to go big, and then therefore we go build some music NFT product. And it's just like too early, it's just too early for that. So I think that, at least for us, what we think about is then, what is the right layer of either infrastructure or user experience to basically be agnostic to whatever comes up. But as soon as some of these green shoots do pop up, we have to build that into our trading and our discovery, because that is actually the thing that people like Magic Eden for. It's like, show me all the content so I can then go trade it, right? That is the core thing that we need to serve our customers on. It's not to invent or bring to life a particular use case that that may or may not come about. And by the way, I think that people working on those problems, it's like kudos to them because it's really, really hard, right? It's like you have to time the market and execute well, and it's incredibly challenging. And I think that we are not dogmatic about what is the subcategory. It's like we believe in the underlying infra, like the tech of NFTs, or maybe it's tokens, whatever it is. But we should just be the layer that enables the trading and discovery, and we will focus on that. And the market will come when the market will come. But there's more than enough to build on the layers that we are playing on, right? Which is, I think there is tons of problems to solve around just like how do you build amazing discovery, unify the chains, give people a slick trading experience, give people good signals, all of that. There's like tons to solve even just for that. So that's kind of stuff that we will think a lot about.
Yeah, I highly resonate with you because we build wallet, and wallet ultimately is just a user interface, and then it is the ultimate aggregation theory, right? So whatever users want, it's not that we provide it. It's like trying to be a platform that bridge between what the users want and what the industry provides. So when we're doing a lot of the chain expansion, use cases, utility expansion, that's always the hard question, is that it's extremely hard for us to bet on what is the use cases that's going to come. But it's more about how to build a framework and the container that if something happens, we can quickly enable that for users if they want it. So it becomes a completely different problem sets to kind of solve. It feels like we're tackling the same challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Zed, I wanted to shift the direction of the conversation a little bit as we head into the last 12 minutes, and we head into some final thoughts from both of you as well. Just from the unique view that Magic Eden has on trading behavior across chains, I just want to get a view on what trends have you seen in how holders are trading today. Like obviously we've seen this massive run of meme coins, and we know that that's taken liquidity away from NFTs, but with that unique view that you have, how is the behavior across chains being traded?
Yeah. We have a pretty unique view of this actually, because number one, we support all the chains obviously on our marketplace, and then two, we have a cross-chain wallet that allows people to basically traverse like all the stuff, and it's very interesting because you can see some of the flows that happen depending on what is the meta of the day, right? Or what is the hottest mint of the week, or whatever is the activity, right? And so the really interesting thing that we are seeing is that the biggest chain inflow outflows that we have on Magic Eden is basically to and from Bitcoin and Solana. And I don't know. I don't know exactly why that is happening, but I have a couple of good hypotheses on why it's happening. So one is that there's some rotation of basically meme coin profits to stack sats. I think that is like a legitimate thing people are doing. Which I think is good, because if you just roll the dice on that, if you keep rolling the dice, you probably end up losing all the soul. So we're seeing some of that, and I think the other one could be as there's new launches, new mints, things like that. You kind of see like I think we had 2 ordinals launch pads last week, and day before you could see the flows from Solana, right, swapping into Bitcoin and then using Bitcoin to mint the ordinals. So there are catalysts like that basically dictate some of those flows. We haven't seen as much like to and from EVM. At least it's not as frequent as we see for Bitcoin and Sol. That could be for many reasons. It's probably nothing to do with like EVM necessarily. It's more probably just like we don't have as many EVM users, right? That could also be very, very valid as a reason. But that's some of the trends we're seeing. Overall, I think we haven't seen as many mints in general for NFTs. We've seen a lot in some of the new ecosystems like ApeChain, and then there's a bunch on Abstract that obviously we're pretty excited about. But overall, for like Ethereum and Solana, which have traditionally been the biggest NFT markets, mints have been relatively contained. So a lot of the activity there is basically, okay, if there's some reaction to a market event, like Solana NFTs had a little bit of a pop when there was some like AI related NFTs that came out, and
Yeah.
that was very on meta, right? So people just started trading that. So that's kind of some of the themes. But I don't have anything too insightful, unfortunately.
No, it's really interesting how you've seen a lot of liquidity move from Solana to ordinals. And it may not even necessarily be that the users aren't on EVM. It's just maybe ETH isn't performing as well as people thought it would, and liquidity is like leveraged and a lot more exciting on other chains. So I think the final question I wanted to get, with obviously that unique insight that you have, is with the launch of these new chains like Abstract and on L2s, and you've got Berachain, Monad, Say, and a few of the others you mentioned there with ApeChain. How is that affecting user behavior across Sol and ETH NFTs? Are you seeing a lot more liquidity being like sold on ETH and then NFTs being bought on other chains? Are you seeing that happen a lot more?
Yeah, I expect that to happen a lot more even on an ongoing basis. But less about sort of I'm not trying to take an opinionated stance on like which chain is better than what. I don't actually really have a deep view on that. It's more that I think that the underlying rails are just getting a lot better. So I think by the middle of this year, probably, I would say, you won't need to go to like 4 different bridges to basically bridge between all these different chains. Like, I think we'll get to a state where you can have a balance on Magic Eden, maybe it's USDC, and then you can just use that to buy like whatever on any chain, right? And that's if once we can unlock that kind of experience, which is not that far away, you will start to then just see a lot of more implicit movements like you are describing. But it just won't look like they look today, right? The way it looks today is that it's like, oh, there's some bridge here, and then it's like you can track that. It'll just be a lot more obfuscated, which I think is a good thing for user experience. It's hard to say exactly what's going to pop up on some of these new chains. Like, we're obviously very bullish on a lot of the new ecosystems, because what it does lead to is that kind of what I said before, like there will always be some angle, right? Like I didn't know about this like streaming like the tips that were happening on day one. That's crazy.
Right.
Right? That's fucking
Yeah.
that's like amazing, right? I didn't even know about that. But I'm sure there'll be things like that on all of these chains, and I think it's very, very hard to predict. But yeah, my expectation is that because of those unique properties, we will see just more like more flow to and from.
Yeah, I get that. And I mean, this is to both of you, and we'll head over to Luca first. What indicators do you see are determining like where NFT demand is heading? Um, Obviously with your sort of view of how that's been in past cycles, but like NFT demand, where's that heading? Where do you see that in 3 months, 6 months?
I couldn't tell you. The data that will tell you though is new mints.
Yeah,
Mints are the most exciting part about NFTs. And so as
facts.
long as there's no new mints, it won't come back the way that you want it to.
Yeah. Are there any mints that you're looking forward to on Abstract?
Yeah, Final Bosu, the Plushies, a couple others.
Yeah, I'm speaking to the Bosu team soon. Actually, I think we're going to be getting them on. The plushies, and what else was it?
There's a couple others. Some that I think that are minted. Once I get back into the streaming trenches, I'm gonna start minting these things.
Let's go. Zed, how about yourself? Like, maybe a similar answer in terms of like new mints determining the demand. Was there anything you wanted to add to that?
That's a very good leading indicator. I'll give everyone a sense of why I'm not concerned about just like, yeah, I think NFTs will be a very big market ultimately. That last 2024, which was I run an NFT marketplace, and so I can say this. It was a very bearish year for NFTs, right? From a narrative perspective, it's objectively true. But Magic Eden, we had our best year ever in terms of revenue, even higher than 2021 cycle. And then number two, we still did. It was like billions of dollars in volume across all the chains in terms of NFTs, right?
Yeah.
Billions. And on ordinals alone, it was like 2.5 billion. So I just feel that it's very easy to dismiss things and ride things that are not ride things that are off narrative, because it's like, oh, this feels dead or whatever. But ultimately, like these are like global permissionless assets that people attach like high, they have high attachment to them because they're associated with identity and community and all of that. And there's just no inherent value that can be placed on that. And when like things like this can go crazy very quickly. So I just think that if that can happen in a very slow year, I'm just generally just not very worried about the market. I think it just keep our heads down. Basically, it's gonna be a good year.
Yeah, I love that. Awen, we've got 4 minutes. I'm just conscious of time. If you wanted to just head into your last couple of questions, and then we'll aim to wrap up in the next 4 minutes.
Yeah. I'm so amazed by the number that you just shared, Zed. I think that's some hidden alphas if we wanted to do a little bit more research into the space when people are looking at other narratives. But looking at bigger than NFTs, what's your bold prediction for the industry that you think is not obvious for both of you?
Luca, you got something? I need to think about this.
Let me think. Things will become more centralized. Builds will become more centralized, and I think this idea of decentralization will be less relevant in the years to come. Because I don't think decentralization and consumer adoption are synonymous. I think they're antonyms. I think they mean two different things.
That's very bold. Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah.
I think TradFi and just more traditional businesses they're gonna like ape into crypto really hard because they're gonna feel like a lot of it's kind of like a new economy, right? We're starting to see it in just many forms, whether it's NFTs or tokens, and every traditional financial business is going to need to have a play, and they have not been paying attention in the last 2-3 years since the last cycle, and they're just going to start aping.
Agreed. Interest rates need to go down, and then the real fun starts. The fun's been starting with high interest rates. Wait till they go down.
Imagine when they drop.
Yeah. We have to go back to the macro ultimately. Yeah.
2% interest rates with all this development and all this infra and everything we've built, it will be madness. So
it's gonna be madness.
Yeah,
madness. What?
All right, we have actually come to the end of the show. I'm conscious of time. We did have a couple of more questions, but we do have a hard stop today. I just wanted to say a massive thank you to you both for joining. Like an incredible conversation. The timing, I think, couldn't have been better. Just in terms of what makes a successful blockchain, where user behavior is heading, like the unique view that Magic Eden have of how that is switching between chains, and of course with Abstract, the future of streaming and bringing some of those incredible figures from tips as well. So a massive thank you to you guys for joining. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thanks,
amazing,
guys.
Amazing. Thank you to everyone else who tuned in, especially the Trust Wallet family. We appreciate you guys. This is Trust Talks episode 3. We have number 4 coming out next week, where we are literally speaking to the most innovative and influential minds in the space. Drop Trust Wallet a follow and tune in for the next show. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Awen.
Cheers.
Cool. Later, guys.